I don't know about you guys, but I had visions in my head after I saw Hasbro take their license from IDW, move it over to Skybound, give it to Daniel Warren Johnson, and do amazing things, that perhaps there was another enormous licensed comic book at IDW that would do just so much better with the change of scenery just as regarding who was creating the comic books. That would be TMNT. IDW has done TMNT no favors over the last basically 5 years. The beginning of TMNT at IDW was actually quite spectacular. The first, 90 issues, all the way up to City at War with Tom Waltz and Kevin Eastman kind of writing and outlining it, were just absolutely fantastic. It was the best merger of Mirage TMNT and the cartoon TMNT from the 80s or whatever. Then also a couple of other iterations of TMNT kind of combined them all and made this perfect ongoing continuity that really worked for the series. Unfortunately, City at War did not work for me. It just kind of bogged down and took way too long. It was 10 issues. After that, they decided Tom Waltz was going to move on to bigger and better things. And then Sophie Campbell, who had illustrated some TMNT work earlier in their career when they were Ross Campbell, took over as the writer on TMNT. It became the Jennika series, and it basically became unbearable. Or you go in and you read an issue, and it's like, Jennika is dating a gerbil. How would she react? Then so you walk away. He's like, I don't want to read that one. The next issue that you jump in on is the turtles are mad at each other, and it's made Jennika really sad. Oh, we're going to concentrate on Jennika and not the brothers? Okay. Let me step away. Then you come back, and it's Jennika got a band together in Mutant Town, and they're going on tour. It's it just became unbearable to the point where I just never came back because it was so bad. And we had been promised, or at least hinted at, that things were going to change after issue 150. And my big hope was that the big change was going to be a new licensor for the product, not being IDW, hopefully Skybound, Daniel Warren Johnson on TMNT. Yes, please. Alas, that is not meant to be. IDW Publishing is staying in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles business. The comic book company has renewed its license deal with Paramount, which has held the rights to the classic characters since 2009. Under the renewed deal, IDW plans on releasing multiple titles in honor of the property's 40th anniversary. Among them is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin 2 Re-Evolution, a sequel to The Last Ronin, which took place in an alternate future and was based on a long-lost outline from the 1980s, written by TMNT creators Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. And TMNT The Last Ronin, which is really, really good, by the way. It's absolutely fantastic. Yes, there were a lot of delays, but it absolutely delivered in the end. It was basically like The Dark Knight Returns, but for TMNT. Just spectacular stuff. And you can kind of see it, with the sales. Not only was it an enormous hit in comic book shops and floppy sales, but it's really the only American comic book that has been able to compete with manga over the last year or two. Its sales were right up there with the best-selling manga stuff and just dwarfing everything else in the business. And I do believe, as much as I like TMNT The Last Ronin, that is likely why they re-upped with IDW, because everyone made a lot of money with that when it was so successful. That likely, unfortunately, Paramount unwittingly associated that success with IDW Publishing rather than with the actual concept that was there, that was created 40 years prior to them ever even releasing the comic book. Because the TMNT ongoing series has just been so terrible under Sophie Campbell. Now, we are going to get new creators, or a creator. I'm not really sure at this point, but we are going to get something new after issue 150. We are in the road to 150. And I guess this is the way I understand it. There likely won't be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles ongoing series. They're not rebooting the continuity, or if they are rebooting it to a number one issue, they're going to continue with the status quo that was created by Sophie Campbell, which obviously includes Jennika front and center above the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles heroes everybody loves. Michelangelo, Leonardo, Raphael, Donatello, Splinter, and all that great stuff. April O'Neil. She's basically become the main character now. Maybe she gets a solo book and we get a book with the brothers all set in the same continuity where they kind of cross over with each other. But at this point, I do think, just as far as the ongoing continuity, the amount of damage that Sophie Campbell did makes the series untenable. You could launch 8 titles out of it, and I don't think any of them will be successful because it was that bad. Although there certainly is a ton of money to be made in the Last Ronin business because it was so successful and has become, probably over the comic books released in the last 5 years, I think that one's probably the one that's most likely to be continue to be read and in print, 10, 20 years from now, it might go down and likely will go down as like a modern classic. In addition to the Last Ronin sequel, IDW continues its ongoing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles series, which will reach a milestone 150th issue this year, while it also publishes Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures, which are inspired by the 1987 cartoon. TMNT 150 will serve as the conclusion of writer Sophie Campbell's long run in the series. Campbell has been the lead writer since TMNT 101 and was also an artist on the book prior to that. Among other things, Campbell is notable for designing the female Ninja Turtle Jennika. Issue 150 will serve as the culmination of Campbell's work on the series, while also laying the groundwork for what comes next. As I said, they're going to kind of continue off what Sophie Campbell built in the ongoing series. And it sounds like there's going to be multiple books, but they better go out there and spend some money and get a damn good name, a good writer to put on this thing to hopefully salvage it from the ashes that Sophie Campbell has left TMNT in, because the book is just awful. It's unreadable, and it has been for so long. And I think even a lot of TMNT diehard fans that would actually like to read the book and not just throw it in their long box gave up on this series a long, long time ago. You don't really hear people talk about it anymore. When you would see like the top 200 comic books published, you wouldn't see TMNT anymore, even though it was kind of a stalwart comic book, in the top 50 for quite some time. And there's been so much damage done to it. But the dream of Skybound and Image taking over for IDW and actually salvaging the franchise is not going to happen. Although I will admit, besides The Last Ronin, I do think Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures from writer Eric Burnham is absolutely spectacular, especially if you like that cartoon. It feels like it's definitely right in line with there. You could make cartoon issues out of those stories, and it would feel like the 1987 series. So if you like the 1980s cartoon, which I absolutely loved as a kid, it's something that you would be very interested in. And I do remember, as like an 8 or 9 year old, TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, a cartoon coming on. You'd never heard of it in your life. And it was so wild and wacky and so much fun, and it had a great little intro song, and they had so many cool characters on there that it just became this worldwide phenomenon. I remember when they said they were going to make like a TMNT movie, and you saw like the poster the first time, you're like, there's no way this is going to work out, right? Because I saw Garbage Pail Kids, the movie, and that wasn't good. And I remember My Pet Monster, the movie, and that wasn't good. But damn me, if Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, was not awesome. I don't know how they pulled that one off. Even without modern technology, they just had the mechanical heads or whatever. And it just really, really worked. And I always loved that movie as well. The sequels, not so much. Not really so much. Although I kind of like the first Michael Bay Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie. I kind of like that one. I thought that one was okay, although the designs were absolutely horrendous for the Turtles themselves. So it's unfortunate IDW is going to continue on here, but I imagine IDW was fighting tooth and nail. This is what they had to say. IDW co-publisher Mark Doyle was equally pleased with the deal renewal. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are iconic. They are part of the tapestry of comic book history, and I'm honored to be publishing their continuing adventures during this milestone year. Our editor-in-chief, Jamie S. Rich, and the editorial team have put together an incredible publishing plan that will thrill longtime fans, excite new readers, and show why the Turtles stand shoulder to shoulder with the biggest heroes in comic shops all over the world. It's a great time to be a fan of TMNT. And obviously, Mark Doyle is going to say that. He is the co-publisher at IDW. For people that don't know the name, you might know the reputation. He was the editor on Batman that Tom King got fired. Just a complete dickhead move. Had Mark Doyle removed from the Batman series and eventually got fired from DC Comics, and obviously has found a job and a home at IDW. But this is not a great time to be a TMNT fan. The comic books absolutely suck. The last movie, Mutant Mayhem, not exactly something people were singing the praises of. And it's just kind of a really flat period for TMNT fans, unless you're a fan of like action figures. There are a lot of really cool things when it comes to action figures right now, specifically like Mezco and stuff, where they're doing like the original turtle designs. But the quality of the build and the materials is so much better now than they were then that they're a whole lot of fun to play with. But unfortunately, the TMNT comic books outside of The Last Ronin and Saturday Morning Adventures just have not been very good. The in-continuity book has just been terrible. I don't blame that on Mark Doyle. They'd obviously gone down that path before they ever hired him. And I imagine he's trying to pick up the pieces of what's left there. And nobody has to be more ecstatic than him and Jamie S. Rich that Paramount didn't take their ball and go home and give TMNT comic books to another publisher that would have done a much better job. Because at this point, It feels like anybody would do better than IDW. Dark Horse would do better. Dynamite would do better. Image Comics at Skybound would certainly do better. I almost believe that Marvel Comics would do better with TMNT at this point. So it's not a great time to be a fan of TMNT, but there is the chance, because Mark Doyle has a good reputation and he does have a lot of really good contacts from his days back at DC Comics, that he can go out there and maybe not get an A-lister, but somebody that's competent, that somebody that knows what they're doing, to come on board, take this over, and really get the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles flagship book back in working order, because it was absolutely outstanding there for several years. If you've never read the IDW TMNT series, start with issue 1. They've got a lot of micro series in there as well that you're going to need to check out to follow along with the continuity, and read it up right till you get about to City at War. Then you can kind of stop if you like, because it just doesn't end very well. But it is a great amalgamation of all these different TMNT universes into one coherent strategy that really worked. And I have a ton of respect for what Tom Waltz and Kevin Eastman were able to do there and really pull off some awesome stuff and really great storytelling. It's just unfortunate that for the last 5 or 6 years, the in-continuity TMNT book has just been so bad. Now, I do talk about TMNT stuff a lot, not only here on the YouTube channel, but even more so over on the Patreon, where we have some extra podcasts to go on. Aaron Sparrow is also an enormous TMNT fan, not only of the comic books, but the movies, the cartoons, and certainly the action figures. And almost every time we do a Geek Fix podcast, we're going to talk about the Turtles in one form or another. So if you want some more Turtle news or Turtle conversations, definitely go check that one out. There's a link in the video description. The Sparrow's Never-Ending Christmas Tree tier, and you're definitely going to get a lot more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles coverage, along with G.I. Joe, Transformers, and all those kind of great cartoons from the 80s when we were kids, because we're still kids at heart. Definitely check that one out.